Hello, happy Wednesday. It's Dr. Andrea. Awareness with Andrea, the Wednesday edition. This is a new thing that I'm doing. I started it on Monday, and I'll be live a couple times a week. It's kind of like my radio show, but it's not radio. So some of you probably remember back in 2010, Vicki Thomas and I had a radio show. It was called It's a Paradox. Paradox meaning a pair of doctors, and then paradox meaning, America spends the most money on healthcare. We're the sickest nation in the world. And that was totally fun. We were on the air for about a year. We covered everything. We talked about all sorts of stuff. So this kind of feels like that. Like it feels like my radio show, but it's a shorter format. It's not as much work, and it's totally fun. So today I'm talking about a couple different things. The first thing I'm going to go over is there was a woman who died because of a brain-eating amoeba that came out of her neti pot. So here's the story. This was printed in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases. I can put the link down below if you guys want it. A Seattle woman rinsed her sinuses with tap water in her neti pot, and a year later she died of a brain-eating amoeba. So what happened was a 69-year-old woman had a lingering sinus infection. Neti pots are known to be really good for sinus troubles because they do help clear out the nasal passages. And so for a month, she tried to get rid of it using a neti pot, but the problem is she used tap water instead of using sterile water as is recommended. So neti pots are used to pour a saline solution that's buffered with baking soda into one nostril and then out the other to irrigate the sinuses, usually to fight allergies or infections. And according to the doctors who treated the woman, the non-sterile water that she used is thought to have contained an amoeba called Balamuthia mandrillaris. Say that 10 times really fast. An amoeba that over the course of weeks to months can cause a very rare and almost always fatal brain infection. So what happened is once it got into her body, it slowly went to work. First, she developed a raised sore on the bridge of her nose. The doctors thought it was a rash and prescribed an antibiotic ointment, but that didn't provide any relief. And then over the course of a year, like a dermatologist kept looking for a diagnosis. So then the left side of her body started shaking. She'd experienced a seizure that had weakened her left arm, and a CT scan showed an abnormal lesion in her brain that indicated she might have a tumor. So doctors sent a sample of the tissue for testing. Over the next several days, additional scans revealed that whatever was happening in her brain was getting worse. The mass was growing and new lesions were starting to show up. So finally, a neurosurgeon at a Swedish medical center where she was being treated opened up her skull to examine her brain and found that it was totally infected with amoeba. So the United States CDC rushed an anti-amoeba drug to Seattle to try to save her life, but it was too late. She fell into a coma and died. Now, according to the CDC, most cases of Balamuthia mandrillaris aren't diagnosed until immediately before death or after death. So doctors don't really have a lot of experience treating this amoeba, and they know little about how a person becomes affected. This particular amoeba was discovered in 1986, and since 1993, there have been at least 70 cases in the United States. I'm guessing most of those cases are related to a neti pot that's using tap water. And I'll be honest, I've done that. Never doing that again. So as in the Seattle woman's case, the infections are almost uniformly fatal. Death rate is more than 89%. And the problem is it doesn't get diagnosed until it's too late. So the woman's doctors say they weren't able to definitely link the infection to her neti pot, because the water supply to her home was not tested, but they do hope that her case will make doctors aware of it and to be aware to look for that kind of thing when people come in. Now, here's the deal. Our municipal water supplies are really well treated. The chances of an amoeba being in there are slim, but frankly, it's not worth the risk. So if you don't feel like running down to the store and getting like spring water or sterilized water, if you're going to use tap water, what you can do is you can boil it for 10 minutes and then let it cool naturally, and you can use that. But I've totally used tap water in the neti pot. I'm never doing that again. I'll either boil it or go get a bottle of distilled water. So that's it. Amoebas, neti pots, who knew? I had no idea. I want to talk about fasting and intermittent fasting. There's a lot of science coming out that even intermittent fasting of 16 hours to 18 hours a day has profound health benefits. As you guys know, I've been doing a lot of longer term fasts. Not recently. I've been eating like a pig for about the last 4 weeks. I've been enjoying every minute of it too. But I think I need to get back to fasting, at least intermittent fasting. So some of the things that it's showing, the biggest issue is that fasting really does create much lower insulin responses. And insulin does a whole lot of things in the body. Most of them are not that great for you. So even if you can only fast 16 to 18 hours a day, which basically just means skip a breakfast and have a late lunch and eat lunch and dinner, it will do amazing things for your body. Weight loss is almost guaranteed, not always. Sometimes if you do intermittent fasting for a long time, your body does get used to it and says, I'm going to hang on to the weight. So then extended fasts will be good. But that hormonal control and the hormonal reset that you get from fasting is really good for you. I'll come on another day and I'll do a little bit more of exactly what the different results are with the fasting and what different effects it has inside the body. And then I want to talk to you guys a little bit about dairy-free. Most of you know I'm gluten-free and dairy-free. Gluten-free is relatively easy to do. Gluten-free, there's so many different substitutes. There's so many different breads and baking mixes and, you know, things that you can do to enjoy pancakes and muffins and bread and blah, blah, blah. But dairy-free, it's truly a pain in the ass. I mean, I love good cheese. I'm not crazy about milk, but I love good cheese. There's some pretty good dairy-free yogurt substitutions, but I find cheese for me is the biggest one. So I have been playing with recipes off of the Detoxinista website. She's got cashew-based, like cheese sauce kind of replacements. And then one of my patients, Jeanette, she also sent me a recipe for a vegan cheese that you can make, and then you can actually melt it like over chips for tacos. I haven't made it yet, but she says it's amazing. So if you're going to go dairy-free, there are a few things I kind of want to talk about because it's hard. The first thing is you have to figure out what dairy products you like the most. For me, hands down, it's cheese. I could go forever. Well, butter, cheese, butter, and cream. Those are my three things that I like the most. So I could go forever without having a glass of milk. I could go forever without having a dairy yogurt. Like coconut yogurt is perfect. But man, a good smoked Gouda or a good aged Parmesan, like there's really no substitute for that. So just a couple of thoughts. The first one is try to find things that are not cheese that you like just as much. So for me, macadamia nuts will do it. I could have a handful of macadamia nuts and feel satisfied. A couple little pieces of salami will do it. I have been able to find like mac and cheese recipes that use cashew as the base. I mentioned that earlier. I'm using recipes off of detoxinista.com, and they're really good. Even the kids liked them. So that says quite a bit. It's not exactly cheese, but it's, you know, it tastes close enough to it, and the texture is there. Like sometimes it's that texture you want. And then in terms of like whipped cream, which is something I love. So now instead of putting cream in my coffee, I'm using a coconut-based creamer that has collagen. I found it at Costco. It's called like Karma Cafe or something. So that's a fine substitute, whatever. Whipped cream though, like whipped cream is amazing. And you can whip coconut cream, but you have to keep the coconut cream in the fridge for like, I don't know, 12 hours or something before you whip it up. So I haven't had a whole lot of success with that. So what I've found is there is a cocoa whip. It's kind of like a coconut-based Cool Whip substitute. So I'll buy like a little container of that and I'll leave it in the freezer. And then when everyone else has regular whipped cream, I'll use that on my stuff. And then there's pretty good coconut ice creams and stuff too. So that's just a few of the tips I've learned. Like you really have to figure out what exactly you're trying to substitute and then find something similar. And then things like a good Parmesan. Oh, Parmesan, grated Parmesan, like on pasta. You can substitute nutritional yeast. It's not exactly, it's kind of close. So a little nutritional yeast with a little salt will do it for me. So like when I made stuffed peppers for Ben's birthday last weekend, I did nutritional yeast and a little bit of salt on top of mine instead of Parmesan. So those are just some tips I've learned in terms of substituting for dairy. If you have any questions, pop them down in the chat box or the comment section and I'll answer them. And then I'll see you probably next Monday with my next episode of Awareness with Andrea. So we'll see how this goes. It's a new thing, but you know, it's kind of fun. All right. Have a good one. I'm going to run home and, oh, we bought a soda stream. Super cool. So we bought one of those like carbonate your own water because, you know, we buy a case of water a week and we're killing the planet one bottle at a time. So we bought one of those soda stream things and I'm going to make my own mineral water by adding a little Himalayan salt to it. And so I'm going to go home and get some of that. All right. You guys have a good one. Be grateful, have fun, and love lots. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.